President-elect Joe Biden is starting to set out his agenda for when he takes office in January. Mr. Biden has already said that his administration will rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, reinstate U.S. membership in the World Health Organization, and bring back protections for Dreamers under DACA. But as Alan Jenkins writes, Biden may want to contemplate further executive actions that can, quote, move beyond the Trump era. For more on this, let's go ahead and bring in Alan Jenkins. He is a professor of practice at Harvard Law School. Professor Jenkins, thanks for joining us. You suggest 7 executive actions that you'd like to see President-elect Biden implement on his first day in office. Which would have the most significant impact?
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Lana. The first one that I recommend, and I think perhaps the most important, is the idea of an opportunity action plan. So this is an action that the Biden-Harris team can implement on day one. It doesn't require congressional action. And what it does is say that the hundreds of billions of dollars that are given out already for existing programs, health and human services and housing and lots of other types of programs, need to affirmatively advance equal access, equal opportunity, equal dignity, the values that were the centerpiece of the Biden-Harris campaign. The Trump administration has moved far away from that ideal in lots of ways, from putting children in cages and separating them from their families, to praising white supremacists and neo-Nazis. But when it comes to policy, the Biden-Harris team has the opportunity right away on day one to establish a new way of doing things that expands access and insists on equal opportunity and equal justice.
It's interesting to me that you propose these as executive actions. Obviously, some of them were taken as executive actions by President Trump, so President-elect Biden would be undoing those movements. But isn't there a risk at appearing to legislate through the executive, through executive actions, and fundamentally that it not only can backlash, as we've seen in the past when it comes to voters, but also that it doesn't have the same staying power as getting congressional buy-in?
Well, the Constitution gives the president the power to execute the laws. And so the recommendations that I've provided in the article you put on the screen are really about ways of executing existing laws, which is the core authority that the president has under the Constitution, in ways that expand opportunity, that create greater equity, that protect our planet, our climate, our communities. And that's really the core of what presidents do. Now, absolutely, we should also be seeing congressional action. And I know that the Biden-Harris team has a legislative agenda. We don't yet know what party will be controlling the Senate, but either way, that process needs to go forward. The point, however, is that when it comes to executing the laws and determining, for example, how federal funds that have already been allocated by Congress should be spent, the president has the authority to execute those laws in a way that expands the values of equal justice and equal opportunity.
Well, the coronavirus pandemic is certainly something that is going to require executive leadership, and it has already highlighted inequalities based on race, gender, and disability, specifically in regard to federal funding. What are some of the ways that you think that the Biden-Harris administration should tackle this issue?
Well, first, let's acknowledge the reality, right, that there are not just drastic unequal health outcomes amongst different racial and ethnic and tribal groups, but there is unequal and unjust access to health care and to what we call the social determinants of health, right? What determines in your community whether you're likely to be healthy or sick, whether you're likely to be able to access health care when you need it. So it's not just health insurance, which the Affordable Care Act covers, but are there hospitals in your community? Are there doctors? Do you have work policies that allow you to take sick leave when you're ill, to see a doctor when you need to see one? All of that, again, are in part enforcement issues that the new President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris are going to come in with the ability to affect. As you noted, Lana, legislation is important, and we want Congress to act on those. But the president has a lot of power here, and I think should be exercising that power in a way that serves all Americans, that insists on equal access to the highest attainable standard of health.
Well, you also discussed in your article how President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris could help to reinvent safety and justice reform in the wake of the social justice movement that's been taking place this year. Talk to us a little bit about what you envision them doing.
So as you note, Lana, we are still in the midst of the largest social justice movement in the history of our nation. People coming, everyday folks, taking to the streets to call for policies and practices that keep all communities safe, that prevent harm, that uphold the values of fairness and equal justice and accountability. And to say, as we've seen in painful video after painful video, that we are far from that goal, that what you look like, the color of your skin, the accent you might have, how much money you make, your gender or gender identity still influence the type of justice that you are likely to receive. And so, again, day one of the things that the new administration should do is to look at some of the innovative approaches to public safety and justice that are being tried around the country. De-escalation teams, mediation approaches, restorative justice, which is sitting people down who've been involved in a dispute and actually talking through what's needed to make it right. We have a terrific program, Common Justice, in the New York area. Very rarely is someone going to prison or jail going to restore what's been lost in an altercation or a criminal activity. Those are all things that this new administration can and should invest in and reward, incentivize communities that are trying out community-led approaches to public safety and justice that keep everyone safe, that ensure that what you look like, where you come from, is not a determinant of how you're treated in our justice system.
Well, what are some of the actions that you would like to see the incoming administration take to restore America's place on the world stage, especially regarding the environment and human rights?
Well, there's no question that we have lost our stature as a nation during the Trump administration as a beacon for human rights. We have never been perfect, the United States, nor has any country when it comes to human rights. But we have tried to set an example. And in fact, the international system of human rights that was created after World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust was significantly led by the United States and Eleanor Roosevelt, among many others. We need to return to that standard and set an example both at home and abroad. So one of the things that I recommend, which has been recommended in the past, is creating a rejuvenated interagency task force on human rights domestically to ensure that we're living up to those same high standards at home that we're calling upon others to respect abroad. And then doing so abroad, which includes signing on to some of the international treaties that the United States has not yet joined, but that most of the nations of the world have joined, such as regarding the protection of migrants and their families, real reporting and accountability, and leadership, the bully pulpit. Every time the head of our nation and of the free world travels to other nations where there are human rights violations, which is almost all of them, that should at least be one important issue that the President of the United States talks about, holds up, demands accountability for, and we just simply haven't seen that with the current administration, but I hope we'll see it with the new one.
All right, Alan Jenkins, thank you.
Thank you.